It's time for Capitol Caucus on 1430 WNAV, an insider's look at what's going on in and around the State House.
Welcome to the 1430 WNAV studios for our Capitol Caucus. I'm Jane Schlegel, welcoming Senator John Astle from District 30, a Democrat, long-serving public servant, military veteran. What else would you like for our audience to know about you, sir?
I was a pilot for the President of the United States for 4 years as a Marine. I flew Marine One for President Nixon.
Yeah. That was a pretty exciting time, a few years ago.
It was a couple years ago.
Fond memories?
Yes. It was pretty exciting.
Was that the best highlight that you can name from your military service?
Well, except for Vietnam. That was another experience.
So you're a war veteran.
I am. Yeah, 2 Purple Hearts. Very, very lucky. I have no disability, but I have some scars and some stories.
Stories that probably lead to scars.
Well, the scars led to the stories.
Yes. That leads us to this Vietnam Veterans event with Ravens coach John Harbaugh coming up in March.
I am. And I'd like to talk a bit about that if
Yes,
I may.
I would love for you to.
I guess it was 3 years ago. I was approached, or maybe it was 4 years ago, I was approached by Hospice of the Chesapeake. They have a program where they honor veterans at the end of life. They get midshipmen and they get active duty personnel from Fort Meade, and they'll visit the veteran in the veteran's home and honor their service. It's a pretty neat program.
That's wonderful.
And so in the process of this, they began to discover that many of the Vietnam veterans had unresolved issues as a result of their experiences when they came back home. As if you recall, we were not welcome when we came back from that war. So they wanted to do something to try to help the Vietnam veterans. So they approached me. I was in the Senate as the only combat veteran. Excuse me, at that time, I was the only Vietnam combat veteran. Now, since the last election, we've got a couple of younger members that served in Iraq and Afghanistan, but I was the Vietnam guy. And so they wanted a bill which would designate March 30th as Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day in Maryland. I asked, why March 30th? The 31st of March is my birthday, and we could celebrate it all together. But they said, no, the 30th of March was the day the last combat troops left Vietnam. And so that's the day. Well, this program, the bill was introduced. Everybody wanted to be a co-sponsor. And the House said, well, we bill. So they did another bill on the House side. Everybody was a co-sponsor. And the governor signed the bill on March 30th. We had a ceremony in the governor's reception room upstairs. And then we had a program at the Lowe's Hotel. And we had, there were 500 or 600 people there for that. It's grown since then. And we're looking at this year, there'll probably be 1,500 people will be in attendance. And so Coach Harbaugh's agreed to come be one of the speakers. We're real pleased about that. But I'm still actively involved with Hospice and kind of helping the planning and some of the invitations. I've invited a 4-star Marine general who is going to be one of the speakers. He served in Vietnam and is a close friend of mine. So we're looking forward. It's going to be a pretty neat experience. And one of the things that I saw, the first one of these we had, there was a lot of emotion in the room, as you can imagine. And for the first time, these guys were beginning to open up. They were talking to each other. And I had a daughter come to me, and she said, I want to really thank you for this. My father has never spoken about his experience until now. So
it's strange how people process things.
Yeah. So it's a healing thing.
Oh,
and,
absolutely.
And I'm proud to have been a part of making this happen.
Well, we're proud that Maryland is honoring our Vietnam veterans particularly, and And thank you for your service, by the way. I'm a veteran, too.
Well,
I wasn't a pilot. And I understand we have something else in common. You're from West Virginia originally?
I am.
And you were attended college where the herd roll.
Yep. I actually was able to graduate from Marshall University. Ironically, my parents were both from Maryland.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, my father grew up on a dairy farm in Cecil County, and my mother grew up in Tacoma Park in Montgomery County. They went to the University of Maryland. That's where they met. And then when my father finished, he took a job in West Virginia. So by virtue of his employment, that's where I was born, raised, and educated.
Now, how long have you been in Maryland? Because you've been started out in the House of Delegates many years ago.
I'm in my 35th year as a member of the General Assembly.
Congratulations, sir.
I started coming to Maryland in 1965. Good friend, he and I had grown up together. He graduated a year ahead of me and got a job teaching here. And called me one night and said, "You got to come to this town. It's pretty amazing." So I came to Annapolis, and that was in September of '65. And every chance I got, I would come back. And then I was flying for the president at the time, stationed in Washington, and was coming over here on weekends, and met a woman.
There you go.
That was
end of story.
That was 47 years ago.
Oh my!
So,
and now 2 daughters.
Now I had 2 boys.
2 boys.
Yeah.
Okay, and 3 grandkids or
3
more?
grandkids.
3 grandkids.
Yep.
Okay.
One of whom is a young woman, the first young woman born into the family in 4 generations. All the other women we had to recruit, but she was born. So, yeah, my oldest son went to the Naval Academy and then served in the Marine Corps.
You have a lot of strong ties to our capital city.
I do.
Yes.
So.
And so you've lived here since?
Well, the house that I live in now, we got married in June of '71, and we bought the house in December of '71, and it's the only house I've ever owned. It's home.
Strong roots to our capital city of Annapolis. You're listening to Capitol Caucus. We're talking with Senator John Astle, long service for military, for public service as a House of Delegates member, and now as a senator since 93, 95?
95 was
Since
my first
95.
session. And by the way, Jane, I forgot to mention this. Also, for 6 years, I was a sworn police officer in Baltimore City.
How did you forget that?
Somehow it slipped my mind.
Well, he's been in a couple of battle zones, as he's talked about. We're going to talk more with Senator John Astle. You can reach him by email at john.astle, that's ASTLE, at senate.state.md.us. And we'll get that phone number. It's 410-841-3578. If you'd like to schedule an appointment, that probably is the preferred trail to reach the senator's office right here in Annapolis, in our capital city. You're listening to the Capitol Caucus on your hometown station, 1430 WNAV. Welcome back to the Capitol Caucus. I'm Jane Schlegel. Our special guest today, Senator John Astle, serves District 30, Anne Arundel County, longtime public servant, military veteran, war veteran, Vietnam veteran, a Democrat. A lot of stuff going on right now with the General Assembly, sir.
That happens when the General Assembly convenes each year.
For their 90 days of busy.
Really busy.
What are priorities for you?
Well, I've got a couple of bills that I've introduced that I really care about. One would require Airbnb to collect a room tax. And you know, in Anne Arundel County, if you rent a hotel room or a B&B, there is a 17% tax that gets collected and goes to the county. The city gets a piece of it. They don't get as much as
they'd like.
But what happens is people are now renting their homes through Airbnb, and there's no tax being collected. Now, this is not a new tax. It's an existing tax, but they're just not collecting it. So this bill would require Airbnb and other platforms like it. Airbnb is not the only one, but they would have to collect that and remit it to the county.
Now, what does the tourist industry think about this?
Oh, they're all for it. Our tourism efforts in Anne Arundel County are financed in part by some of that money. That room tax money goes to the Conference and Visitors Bureau, and then they use it to market this area to
And it's big
the world.
business.
You know, it's so big. They're doing such an incredible job that the pamphlet they hand out to visitors is now printed in 4 languages:
Is that right?
Chinese, French, Spanish, and English.
Our own little hometown.
Our own little hometown. I mean, we're getting visitors from all over the world, and it's because of the efforts of our Conference and Visitors Bureau.
So they need the financial support.
They do, and they put it to good use. And, you know, you can look at their metrics. That's a new word I learned in the legislature. But look at the metrics of what they've been able to do since they had access to that money in terms of hotel occupancy rates are really up. And then I did another bill several years ago which requires at the end of each fiscal year the comptroller to look at business codes that are related to tourism. And then they publish those results. So if we get over the threshold, the governor can then put a little extra of that tax money back into tourism marketing, because we have an effort at the state level too. The Maryland Tourism Development Board is involved with marketing on a statewide basis. But because of those measurements, we know the impact that tourism is having in Maryland, not just on the whole state, but, you know, by local jurisdictions as well.
It's one of the largest industries, isn't it?
I think it is. Mm-hmm. And the thing I really like about tourism is that everything's built. We don't have to build anything.
There's no infrastructure required.
No infrastructure. We just have to let people know that it's here. And it goes from the ocean to Baltimore,
the mountains,
Annapolis. I mean, so many historic events took place in Annapolis, Baltimore Harbor, where the Star Spangled Banner was written, all the way out to the mountains of western Maryland. So, I mean, we've got it all, but we just have to tell the story.
And keep promoting.
Keep promoting. You know, it's just like Burger King and McDonald's. They don't stop advertising.
Oh, no. Market away.
People would be eating tofu if they stopped.
Well, I don't know about me or you, but yeah, some people would be.
Yeah.
For sure. You're listening to Senator John Astle, representing District 30, Anne Arundel County, long servant of the public from military service right into the Senate. And we'll talk more as we continue Capitol Caucus on your hometown station, 1430 WNAV. Thanks for joining us for Capitol Caucus on 1430 WNAV. I'm Jane Schlegel. Senator John Astle, my special guest this afternoon. Thank you again for coming into the studio. I know this is a hectic time.
Thanks, Jane. It is a hectic time. I was afraid I wasn't going to get out of the chamber in time to be on time here, but it's worked out well.
I appreciate you taking time away from the business of the people to come over and talk about the business of the people for Capitol Caucus today. What committees are you currently serving on?
Well, I'm the vice chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. Now, people think finance, you must do money and budgets, but we don't. The Finance Committee is a policy committee, and we have probably the widest array of issues of any of the committees. We have labor law, we have financial regulation, we have some health care that has insurance components to
A lot
it.
going on with healthcare this year.
Yep, there really is. We've got horse racing. Just some motor vehicle issues we do as well. So, wide array of issues. Now, the hearings. Now, for example, we had 2 bills that we heard them together at the same time. We spent over 3 hours on those 2 bills.
Just for public testimony? For testimony from the advocates, lobbyists?
Well, the advocates, the lobbyists. the public needs to know that anyone who wants to come and testify for or against a piece of legislation is welcome to do that. All you have to do is come and sign up. It's an easy process. And then when the committee convenes, when that bill is called up, then the chairman has a list of all the people, and he'll call people one at a time, and they can come and tell the committee what they think.
And they do.
And they do. They really do.
And it's quite a process, isn't it?
But it works. I think really by and large it works. And, you know, Washington gets a lot of bad press because it's not working. But here in Maryland, we actually get things done. We get legislation passed. We get a budget done. By our Constitution, on the 85th day, the budget has to be done. If it's not, then the governor takes the preliminary steps to call a special session because we can't go home till the budget's complete.
And we don't want a special session because that's very costly for the taxpayers.
It is costly, yeah. And, you know, most legislators have other jobs as well. This is just a part-time legislature. Up until I turned 65, I was a helicopter pilot for a hospital system. And so, you know, the session was over, I'd go back to flying.
So now you don't have to go back to flying?
No, now I'm retired.
Well, semi-retired, let's say.
Semi-retired.
Oh, speaking of piloting, I've got to ask you about this measure that the county executive is hoping the Anne Arundel delegation will push through. The pilot for the West County Conference Center?
Yes. That's.
What's the latest on that, sir?
Well, there's starting, I think, to be a little bit of pushback. I don't know if you saw the editorial in the paper this morning.
About the casinos.
They were raising some questions.
Mm-hmm.
We asked the county executive to send us a request so we have on record that this is something that he wants and not something that we thought up. So the bill has not yet had a hearing, so it's going to be interesting to see what comes from that hearing.
Any predictions?
I think probably it's going to pass. But it may.
But it has to go through this session, is my understanding.
Yeah, it does.
Because its construction is already underway.
You know, one of the things I've often, it's an analogy, you put a bill on the table. It's kind of like throwing a grenade in a swamp. You don't know when you throw a grenade in a swamp what's going to float to the surface. And the same with a piece of legislation. You put a bill on the table, and you're not sure who's going to come. And you may find that you have opponents that you didn't know you had until they see the bill. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Well, according to the county executive's office, there are many sponsors, folks lining up behind this because Anne Arundel County doesn't have a venue for high school graduations. And
we don't, and that's something that we've been trying to do for a long, long time. So I think this is going to be fairly popular.
So what we're talking about is a structure that's over by Maryland Live Casino in Hanover.
Yes.
And it would be a huge venue.
Well, it'll be a venue not only for high school graduations, but it would also give the Conference and Visitors Bureau the opportunity to marketing to big conferences and conventions that could come here because we'd have the physical space.
And that's revenue generated when they come and they spend their money and then they leave. How nice is that, sir?
That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. Yep.
Well, it's a good point to always make that's the benefit and the blessing, I think, of the tourist industry.
Yep. That
it's not a lot of infrastructure requirements like you've mentioned already. The other thing I wanted to mention was local politics. With the Anne Arundel, Annapolis City, I understand that you wrote a letter in support of the exiting police chief.
I did.
Did you want to make any comment on what's happening in our capital city?
Well, I'm not in the mayor's office, and I'm not privy to the conversations that may have gone on between the mayor and the chief of police. I was a little surprised at his departure because the mayor had just given him, I think it was $125
million for new staff.
Different new money, and the mayor had backed him up when there was that vote of no confidence from the African American Leadership Caucus. So I was a little surprised, but obviously there were some discussions that I wasn't privy to. So, he's the mayor, and he gets to make that decision.
Mm-hmm. So this is a part-time job that requires some long hours.
It does. It really does.
What's the best part of it?
I can help people, and I can help fix problems. That's where I get my greatest reward.
Mm. And your constituents can contact you how?
Well, a couple of ways. I have a website, the General Assembly website, which is john.astle, that's ASTLE, at senate.state.md.us.
That's a lot of dots, sir.
It is. It's a pretty big address, but that comes right to my office, and I have staff that, get all the
Filter
emails,
through.
and then I get to see them. The other way is to phone me, and that number is 410-841-3578.
And again, they can leave a message or call
Well,
their concerns.
if they can't get me in person, during the day when I'm in committee or someplace else, but they can leave messages, and I try to get back to everybody. And the other thing is they can show up at my office.
Oh, really? You have an open door policy?
I do. My policy is if I'm in the office and my door is open, I'm in. And I tell people the only thing an appointment does is make sure I'm there when you're there.
But
So-
it is preferred, isn't it? Because you have a hectic schedule.
I do. I do. When session's in. So if somebody wants to see me, they can call the office and we'll schedule an appointment, and I'll be happy to sit down. I have to tell you, I prefer face-to-face communication. I'm from the old school, and I really appreciate it when people want to come and sit down and we can look at each other face-to-face and talk about the issues.
Do you learn more from people when you sit down with them face to face?
I think so because, a lot of communication is nonverbal.
I
And so
agree. So you do learn a lot from
I
people.
do. And I've learned a lot about all kinds of things because, we have so many different bills and so many different issues, and people come and talk about it, and it's been an education.
So the learning never stops then?
No, even when you get to be a more senior person.
Well, you seem to be pretty sharp for being a more senior person, and you're not slowing down at all, it doesn't appear.
I still got it going on.
Well, there you have it, Senator John Astle. He's got it going on. You can reach him by email at john.astle, that's ASTLE, at senate.state.md.us. And we'll give that phone number once again. It's 410-841-3578. If you'd like to schedule an appointment, that probably is the preferred trail to reach the senator's office right here in Annapolis, in our capital city.
I might also mention I do snail mail too.
Oh, you accept letters by post office?
Absolutely. The address is simple, just Senator John Astle, Senate of Maryland, Annapolis, 21401.
21401. There you have
It'll
it.
come right to me.
So there's multiple ways and options for reaching out to our representative, Senator John Astle, long-serving.
Say
You
one
can
other
say
thing?
anything you'd
Oh,
like.
thanks.
This is your show.
One other thing, when I'm out and about, I'm also on duty. So you see me at the grocery store, you see me pumping gas in my pickup truck, you can come over and say, hey, I want you to hear what I have to say about whatever.
X, Y, and Z.
So I'm always, and I'm out and about a lot.
Do you ever hide from people?
Not really.
No. You enjoy this public servant thing.
I enjoy people.
You enjoy people. You're a people person, as they say.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, you almost have to be in this line of work, don't you?
If you want to be successful.
And you've been doing it for quite a few
Yeah,
years.
this is my 35th legislative session. I did 12 years as a member of the House, and I'm in my 23rd year as a member of the Senate.
Well, how do you feel like it's going this session? Because it seems like it's gangbusters to me.
Well, yeah, a lot. I mean, we had some issues in the beginning. We had the veto overrides, the three bills
Yes.
that the governor had vetoed, and there was a lot of angst and emotion tied up with that discussion. But the committees are working hard. There's just there's a lot going on. Today, for example, my committee, we've got a number of labor bills, and they always bring out a lot of people. So we're probably going to be there until late this evening.
Mm-hmm. Anything else that our audience should know about, be aware of as the work progresses?
Well, sometimes I'm a little surprised at how little my constituency pays attention to what's going on when they really should pay more attention. I mean, if you happen to be an advocate for a particular issue, yeah, you're tuned in.
You're all
But
in.
If you're not, then I mean, you got to pay attention because it's your government, and if you don't take part in it, I tell people if you don't take part, you're going to get what you got.
And you shouldn't complain then either.
Yeah, that's true. And we listen. And voters have the ability to turn out elected office holders, and we've seen that in a number of instances.
Yes, we have. But you feel like the governor's keeping things moving?
Yep, it's moving quickly. Yep.
And not a lot of angst between having a Democrat-ruled legislature and a Republican in the state house.
There were some issues early on. Leadership of the legislature was not in harmony with the governor's leadership. But now we're working on the bills, which are really it's about the community, the people, and we're pretty well focused and working together. My committee, we have 3 Republicans on the committee, and we work very closely together, and we get stuff done.
Reaching across the aisles to get stuff done in Annapolis.
That's what we're there for.
Senator John Astle, thanks for being my guest today on Capitol Caucus.
I was happy to be here. Thank you.
We'll do it again, maybe.
I'll be happy to come back.
You're listening to Capitol Caucus on your hometown station, 1430 WNAV.
You've been listening to Capitol Caucus on 1430 WNAV.